Hi, and welcome to If These Heels Could Talk.
Michelle with Bad Cat Digital. I almost said Michelle with Solutions by Georgina. I really did. I really did.
Thank you. Thanks for joining the team.
Aww.
I'm Georgina, and I have Solutions by Georgina. You have Bad Cat Digital.
Yeah. Let's keep it straight. Oh my gosh, it's so early.
I caught myself. This is the topic I want to bring. Incompetent or being taken advantage of.
Yeah. That needs a little bit more explanation, because if you're asking me if I'm incompetent or being taken advantage of, I don't know that I'm going to have a positive reaction to that.
I know that could change during any part of the day.
That can definitely change. There's a lot of different ways in which I am incompetent. So
right. And I'm still learning.
Yep.
And there are other spaces where I'm very competent.
Yes.
So recently there have been, I could think of 4 or 5 situations actually that have occurred that I'm finding myself on the way here driving into the studio today. I caught myself thinking about again.
Okay.
And there were emotions of anger. There are the emotions that you get when you feel taken advantage of, when you feel victimized.
Anger, kind of maybe some shame.
Right. And frustration and a little guilt. Like, why didn't I see that? What's
and maybe
wrong
a little
with
bit of like, maybe there's that little bit of like, gosh, I'm so stupid, and judgment for yourself.
Right.
And
so I was doing some shame, blame, and guilt. And I was, there's this flavor of annoyance and trying. And what I weeded through some of it to get to what it was I don't enjoy feeling like a victim, like I was taken advantage of. And so I'm replaying these scenarios, trying to figure out what I missed and this was the question I'm like, you don't know that all of these people were purposefully, maliciously, like they made choices to make my life harder or to misinform me of something and then thereby send me in wrong direction.
Like a trusted advisor gave you advice that maybe wasn't quite on.
Well, here's a super example of recently. I brought my car in, it was making a noise, and I knew it had something to do with the air conditioning anyhow. And the guy takes it for a test drive and he gets back and he's like, I think you're going to need front ball bearings. He's like, I think that's up. And he goes, and your air conditioner for sure. We got to replace that. And I just let it go. I went, let's just worry about the air conditioner and we'll let it go.
Right.
When I got home, I pulled out my receipts because I have a file. I'll own it. I have a file, pulled out my receipts for that car. And right in there, a year and a half ago at a different mechanics, I had replaced the front ball bearings. So now I have 2 issues.
Right.
That guy was definitely lying to me. He was, because it wasn't making the same, like it was not making any noise related. So
right.
That guy's trying to sell me something I don't need.
Okay.
And now I'm questioning if I ever needed to have those replaced, or did the other company just tell me they needed replaced?
Okay, but this is when you start spinning, right?
That's what I'm.
This is when we start spinning,
and I'm like, oh.
So here I would ask 2 questions about this.
Yes.
One is, if you have somebody in your life who's a trusted advisor, who one or the other of those things is true, either what they've given you is
have both.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. But does it really matter which one is true? They're no longer a trusted advisor. So does it really matter why?
That's true. No, I like that.
So that's
and not making I felt in that moment, I felt taken advantage of. And I wanted to make the rage video. I wanted to go back and like have him on camera telling me this again. So I could be like, okay, I just want to share this. Feel free to use this facility, but just know this is, here's the quality we're at. But that becomes my next, when you're going down this line.
So then my next question is, in any particular instance, and so we'll just take the mechanic, for example.
Yes, because we've got that one, but I got all of them this week.
But why did he recommend that? What did he experience in driving your vehicle that would indicate to him that was a potential issue? Because the sound wasn't there.
Right.
Was it a tightness in the wheel? Was it...
That's true. I could have asked.
There's...
But I shouldn't have to... That's what gets under my skin. I shouldn't have to be the expert to know additional questions to decide if what he's telling me...
That's true. That's absolutely true. And if you're going to try to suss the difference between incompetence and this,
you do have to do a little more.
Then the curiosity is what will get you that answer.
And that's where I get that's where I get this lump of frustration.
Right.
Is I didn't put in my schedule time to deal with this. Like,
Sure.
I didn't put, it's like, no, I don't have to, it's that Trevor Noah thing. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
Like I did not put that, I did not put that in my schedule to like spend time figuring that out. And there's been, I picked up a thing at a local retail store. I bought it online. You go and right, they bring it to the car and so forth. So it felt, when I got home and opened the bag, it felt like the drive-through thing where you open it and they don't have the fries in your burger. It was that the thing they had sold me, which I'd paid full price for, and everything was an open box. It was missing things. The cello's not on it. The label, and I'm like, so I go online and say, hey, can we just like negotiate an open box price on this? You give me a little bit of discount and like, I don't have to drive across town and deal with this. Oh no, because you picked it up, that's not possible. You have to go back to the store and talk with them and exchange it for a new one. And in that moment, I'm like, you've got like, that's another.
Oh, and you have to do it within 24 hours.
Right. And I'm like, that's an hour and a half of my life I can't have back. I've already tried to support local by doing it this way instead of ordering it on the mega store online that'll just drop it off at my damn doorstep in 2 days. I'm like, and in that moment, I'm like, I just want to write so many negative comments, but in that hour and a half, it would take me to write that. I could have gone across to, so I had to decide. I'm like, am I keeping this? Am I bringing this? And it sat there for a day while I decided.
Well, you decided. And all of that is time and energy that you don't plan for and didn't expect and didn't do anything to earn.
Well, and now when I see that, it was a doorbell. It was the video doorbell thing. I hung it up. It works and everything. But every time I think about it,
you're mad.
I am. I look at it and I'm like, oh, you're used goods. And I paid full price for you. Oh. And I need to let that, like, that's the energy that I'm talking about that is wasted. When I talk to people about wasted energy, that's wasted energy. I made a choice. I need to let go of the energy of it not happening the way I wanted it to, or the way I thought it should, or the way it did. So what? Doorbell's up, works great. Let it go. Move on. But that's what I'm noticing, and those are little things. The biggest thing this last week was dealing with my dad's estate, and that dealt with money.
Yeah.
And that dealt with actually multiple advisors and multiple people and multiple companies. And I think for me, what felt the most like I was actually part of the process was, like you were saying, I'd gotten enough information that when I contacted the company again yesterday to fix an error that they'd made the day before it became a permanent error, and it was big, the gal on the line said, oh, you know what? I don't see any of those transactions here. And well, why don't we start over? I had to take a very deep breath and say, absolutely not. That sounds like a recipe for a complete disaster. I said, why don't we pause and you either get a manager or take a moment to review my file as much as possible. I'm happy to sit on hold. But I said, what we're not going to do is make a mess.
Excellent.
And then I had to put her on mute while I waited for her to say a couple of things. And then, is it okay if I put you on hold? And I'm like, that I unmuted. I'm like, that'd be great. Because I was hot. I was so hot because this is important and I don't want to screw it up, and I'm working so hard at it. And she came back. Oh, I did review your file. You're right. It is in there, and it doesn't say what you wanted it to say. And so it's been very, very challenging. And I wind up at that, is it incompetent, or are these people taking advantage of me? And it's interesting because I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of paranoia. So that's part of what I'm fighting.
Sure.
There's a lot of paranoia, so I can drift over there quickly. Like my first response is actually, I think they're taking advantage. And it's like, pause. I'm adding in the equation. They just maybe don't know.
Well, and
you ask? Who do you need to reach out to? It's like how, like you were saying, get more curious.
And there is another path that is, depending on how you look at it, either a subset of incompetence or a third option. Yeah. Which is laziness.
Oh, you're right. I did that. Yeah, that too.
Now that can be a subset of incompetence. I completely, especially, you know, when you're talking to somebody on the phone and they said they reviewed the file, but they've barely looked at it. And, you know, they're asking you all the same questions that you've answered before because they didn't take the 3 minutes to read the thing. And, because, you know, all of those companies take copious notes in those. They record, and they don't.
Let me help you. Record the conversation. It's, you know, it's transcribed. Like it's all there.
Yeah, it's all there.
It's all there.
So I think, but it does take time, and you know, it's not like that time is really rewarded in those job positions. The time to review that, it's, you know, their metrics are usually, you know, how many minutes you're on the phone with the client, and how long people are on hold, which doesn't give you time to do anything. So you know, I can understand some of those things, but I think that for the vast majority of and this could be just me and how I've decided to classify it.
It helps
because I've decided to classify it this way, and maybe in part because I don't necessarily want or care to have this inner turmoil about this question.
That's just it. You have to decide.
The vast majority of people want to do the absolute bare minimum to complete a task.
Yeah. See,
and that includes, why not?
It's true of me.
But it's true of everybody. Like that's, you want to do the bare minimum.
I want to be really efficient.
I want to be, you know, and we can say, I want to be efficient.
See, we can say,
we can word it in a different way.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think, not 100% sure that it was Bill Gates who said that lazy people are the most efficient.
They are.
Because we only want to do shit once. Excuse my language. Because we only want to do things once. And so because we only want to do things once, we're going to do them with intention.
Yes.
And but sometimes people either have no personal stake in the outcome, like when you picked up the product from, they just grabbed one off the shelf
from the retail store,
right? The person making $12 an hour doesn't care, or $15 an hour doesn't care,
and they're so desperate for help right now. Like, and it's not like that one to me fell under doing their best, incompetent.
And like, I think the mechanic might have something similar, frankly. That, you know, he maybe doesn't have that much experience. Maybe he was just guessing wildly. Maybe it was the thing that comes up the most.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't know. You couldn't
know.
Possibly know until you opened it up. And I think that you're being taken advantage of if you had okayed the work, they had opened it up and replaced them less than a year after just to cover their tail.
Yeah.
That's when you're being taken advantage of.
And figuring out, so when you do recognize those moments, because they've happened.
They happen.
They do. Then it's, what do you do with, you know what I mean?
What do you do with it?
Then it's the, what do I do with it?
I think that the majority of people, this is how I think about even conspiracy theories.
Right.
The majority of people are too lazy to take advantage of anybody. Like you're assigning a level of level of intent and thought that if they had that level of intent and thought,
with that really
the
paranoid
mistake
person,
wouldn't have happened in the first place.
They assumed, like, I grew up in an environment where everybody assumed people were highly competent and were working at, like,
and I just like, you're assuming a level of forethought and planning by the $12 an hour person pulling the doorbell off that is maybe not
right. I like that. That adds some good humor,
know, because
and this does apply to business. Like I've brought up some things that we're not, but there's a lot of banking and loans. There's a lot of the services that we need.
There are things that we trust that, you know, like I've had a disastrous issues with some banking in the last year, just absolutely and expensive.
And
it's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
And it does waver between me going, is that person just a complete incompetent mess? If I tell the leadership of that person that they're an incompetent mess and then they don't do anything about it, now is that person incompetent, or am I just being taken advantage of? I get it. I do get it. At the same time and at the same level, like
return on investment. What do you can't take the moment back?
Nope.
Like at the end of the day, that's where it's like, okay, I can't get my hour back.
Nope.
I can't. And that's what I told the guy who was finally helping me fix stuff with the financial things. I'm like, here are the things you can't give me back. The 8 hours I've spent with your company this week.
Right.
You can't give me that back. I said, what you're going to do is actually take more time.
Right.
I said, but what I want us to do is we're not hanging up the phone until this gets done right.
Yes.
And I have no problem with your hold music. And he was like, I've heard you. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to spend some time together. And I said,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're going to get it done.
And 2.5 hours later,
Yep.
we were able to say goodbye. He was able to give me the information, like so forth. But I really appreciated that I was able to be very clear. I'm like, here's what I want out of this. You can't give me back certain things, but it's like, I want out of this.
Well, and maybe here's the deal.
Good.
I'm not going to blame you for that 8 hours as a human.
Right.
In this conversation, I'm not going to treat you this way. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm going to keep my frustration with that 8 hours in myself.
Yep.
And this is what I would like from you in return.
Yep. It's like,
I want a resolution. I don't want to do this again.
Yep. I think you're the person. I feel like we could make this happen. Like how do we do this?
Yes. So I will treat you like a person because I don't feel like treating anybody like a person right now.
No, I was like, and I have learned throughout this a variety of what I have learned to ask. You've done a very nice job in helping me fix this. I would like to share my experience and my thoughts on how you might shift this with somebody who does care. Who might that be? And typically they're really, you can send it to my manager's email. You can actually I'll send you a link and there's a questionnaire thing that I'm like, do that. I need a space to place this and let it go. And I found sometimes that I set a timer. I can only give myself like 30 minutes to vent. And I'm like, just I need to release this. And that's how I let it go and just be like, okay, I've expressed that I think it's absolutely insane that financial transactions are recorded over a phone line and not backed up with an email of any sort and I did not have to send. There was no written communication. It was literally, and that's their new way of doing it because it's so much easier. And she was not an audio person and miscommunicated numbers. And that's how we wound up down that whole line. And I went, wow, like there are certain things that I was just like, this doesn't make, like, I can't register this in my head. I run a company.
Right.
I have people sign contracts. We review, they initial off. Like I would never, this makes no sense.
This makes no sense.
Yeah.
Well, and it kind of opens another door. I've been thinking a lot lately about changes that we've made. Changes that we've made at Bad Cat. And I'm like, are we making these changes to make our clients' lives easier? Are we making these changes to make our lives easier? Which, when in direct conflict, not always, it's not always in direct conflict, but it can be.
Yes.
Because we can be making things easier for ourselves at the cost of.
Yes.
Right. And so asking those questions, I think, is really important for any organization.
It really is. And that's, sometimes
a perfect example.
You can try to do things in business and sometimes you come across as incompetent or taking advantage of someone or laziness.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
I was at a big box electronics retailer.
Yes.
Because I needed a computer same day for a new hire. Right?
Got it. Yes. Okay.
Needed it same day. Go to the big box electronics store, walk to the section with the $2,000 and $3,000 computers with the shiny silver on the outside and the fruit.
The fruit. Yes. Okay.
And I stood there for 25 minutes.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Now it is the week after it's the week after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
But they were woefully understaffed.
Oh yeah.
I mean, beyond understaffed. I mean,
like should have shut the doors and said they weren't open.
I mean, it was basically like it felt like the Saturday, like from staff to customer ratio, it felt like the Saturday before Christmas.
Oh man.
It was rough. I mean, two registers open.
Yeah.
People in and out because people still deserve their breaks, and I'm not gonna
right.
And I do recognize that staffing is very difficult right now. Yes. So I'm not, there's that.
Right.
I also have worked for organizations like that, and I also understand how they calculate labor, and I also understand that since they've now calculated that, well, people can just buy it online and then pick it up. like nobody really needs help on the sales floor anymore. It's all self-service. And so they've calculated this, and they've calculated a new
they've got a new algorithm.
labor ratio that's going to save them money because everybody got a raise, right? So they've calculated a new, and they've pulled probably, I'm going to guess they've pulled 25% of their hourly staff, if not 30 or 40.
Yeah, I was going.
And I would guess that the vast majority of retailers and large chain food service has done the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is why everything's taking a little longer. Everything is.
Yeah.
And so in this transition of them skimping, we've had skimpflation conversations before.
We love that one.
In this transition of them skimping, you and I are making up the difference in our service.
Yeah.
So it's our time, it's our patience, it's our work, our research, our work, our to go on the website and maybe pay online and then pick it up rather than walking into the store and saying, "Do you have this?"
Hunt this down,
right?
Yeah.
So like all of those things are shifting,
and
it's becoming more self-service by default, which is super frustrating when you actually want some help.
I know it is,
but we've helped create that environment as well.
I know. That's just it. So we're part of this transition. Yes.
Right. So which means that in this transition, we now are taking on some of that burden, which is super frustrating. And let's be real about, it's a first world burden.
Yes. Okay. Very clear. First world burden.
And so I don't know, like I hear what you're asking when you're saying about incompetent or being taken advantage of, but I would argue that it doesn't really matter. I would argue that if you are feeling that way about anybody that you have trusted in the past, any organization, any person, I would argue that it doesn't matter which one is costing you money and time, that you should just walk away as quickly as possible.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Because what this conversation has made me think of was that book I read a while ago, Givers and Takers.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was really good at explaining the fact that there are just naturally people that will give. That are kind, generous, and will give.
Yeah.
And there's a natural group of people that came into this world and they will take.
Yeah.
They are born as that. And you should not. And they pointed this out. They're like, if you want to live your entire life, the premise that everybody's a taker, you're going to be very exhausted
and lonely.
Yeah. They're just like, there are people that are takers, and the best you can do, and the most successful people that are extreme givers, is they just write off 10%. Like they know 10% of their energy, of their time, of anything. They just try and keep it in check at 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
Because they know they're just takers and they're going to do those things. And you just put it in the 10 to 15% bucket. And I'm thinking it's kind of like when you're leading an organization and you have to recognize the fundamental truth that people work with you and they're choosing to work with you, and they can choose at any given time not to work with you. That's true.
And you simply have to, you're not being taken advantage of. You're not wasting your training. You're not this or that or the other thing. It is the relationship is a two-way street, and you're going to give more than you receive in that, because it is a power dynamic relationship.
Yeah.
The person who has the cultural power is going to give more than they receive in order for that relationship to be successful.
Yeah.
Because
that's how it's designed.
A power dynamic relationship.
Right. That's how it's designed.
If we want to take away the power dynamics of the relationship, then we can take that away. But until then,
we've got that.
So I would say the same thing with this. If you've, like there are some things you can't get out of, like your dad's estate stuff, and you're just going to have to deal with who you're going to have to deal with.
And it's a good exercise.
But you can also know
it's a good exercise in communication. It's a good exercise in practicing. Like I'm building.
But now you know who not to buy things from for yourself.
Right.
Now you know who not to work with for your own estate.
I'm so aware of so many things.
Right. Yes. Now you know about this. So
the greatest thing I've learned that I will pass on right now, get beneficiaries on everything. Like checking account can have beneficiary. Like make sure you have your
the transfer
beneficiaries on.
and sometimes
And
it's
it's
called
so-
transfer on death.
It's so easy for people to forget that, or you're moving along and it's like, oh, it's not that big. It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
It's a really, really big deal for anybody else. So that's my
Yeah.
10 cents on learning about that. It's like, put the beneficiaries on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a
I
great
hope-
topic.
I was gonna say, I hope we've helped everybody. Don't recognize that if you've had a variety of these feelings, some of what we've talked about, more or less,
Yeah.
just you're not alone.
No.
You're not alone.
No.
But what you do have control over is not allowing that situation to take any more time and energy out of your life and turn it into a teachable moment, which was what I was trying. I'm like, I might as well make this a teachable moment and share it with some people.
Well, and decide, and you get to decide.
Yeah.
You get to decide, and you get to decide in the cool light of day when
Yes.
your entire brain is functioning and you're not so
Yes.
frustrated.
Yes.
Because when we're frustrated and overwhelmed, we're in our lizard brains.
Right.
And that's
It's not pretty.
It's not pretty.
No.
So when you're out of your lizard brain and into your frontal cortex,
Yes.
you can then say, you know what? I don't really care if they're incompetent or taking advantage of me. I don't care if they're lazy. I don't care. I don't care if a volcano erupted. I'm sorry, people in Hawaii. I don't care if a volcano erupted and blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
This took my time. I got frustrated by it. And now it's done.
And our relationship is shifted.
Yeah.
Like we're just
Yeah.
not going to play like this
I know
anymore.
I have more information than I did before.
Yep.
I get to tell myself a different story about it. I get to do something different about it in the future.
And
And the past is the past.
and hopefully there's competition in that arena.
Yep.
So you can go shop, you can
Yep.
go somewhere else. You can make other choices. And
Yeah.
for the most part, there is.
And
that's
when
nice.
when it's a really low level thing, it doesn't matter. You can just walk away from it. When it's a higher level thing, you get to decide whether or not you want to put in the
Mhm.
time and energy to be curious, to find out what happened, to try and
Mhm.
kind of like walk something back. Because if you've put a lot of time and energy into a relationship,
Yes.
maybe you want to add that little modicum of time instead of just washing your hands of it
Yes.
to try and repair
Yes.
a little bit
And there are
and provide the
yes.
opportunity. And there's times when that's the case. Maybe not in the case of
Not the box
the
store, they lost
retailer
it.
that
Yeah. That one was
they
easy.
put the open box in the bag. But
So fun.
because that's not a relationship you've put a lot of time and energy into.
Nope. So it's
No.
easier to walk
So
away.
it's easy to
like
walk
there's
away
lots
from
of
it.
competition. I'm
Yeah.
good.
But like this,
Yes.
if I were to put an empty box in a bag and give it to you,
we would have
have a conversation.
right. I would be like, hey,
Yeah.
something happened. Something broke down.
Something broke down.
Something broke down.
Yeah. And I would say, did you look at the outside of the box? Because it was an electronic snuggie and it was super funny.
Right.
Right?
Oh, no, sorry. Exactly. Thank you for joining us. We hope you've had a good laugh with us and you've learned a few things and
Yeah.
you can pass this on to other people and help them also process through their day and their experience as a business owner.